communication is really communicating from the perspective of how you impact what someone does, not what you do.
Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Michael Bounds.
Every week on the show, we aim to disrupt the way real estate agents and entrepreneurs think about business and life. And Mike, today I want to disrupt the way you think about what you do. And that's because what you do doesn't matter. Now, maybe I should rephrase that, because what you do actually does matter. But more than anything, what you do doesn't matter until people understand the impact that you make on them by doing whatever it is that you do. And so one of the things that I've encountered, especially recently in my own business and life, is that oftentimes we take this perspective of, when people ask, what do you do? We take from the perspective of explaining or thinking that they understand. When I say real estate agent, that means something to them that's understandable, or that we've communicated with clarity what I mean by that. And yet the reality is that all of it falls on deaf ears until they understand how I impact their life or their business by explaining the effect that I have on their life by doing what I do. And so I found that in communication, the most effective way to communicate is by actually creating a clear understanding of the impact.
Yeah. Just like I mentioned this earlier to you guys. So like right now, words matter. And so the issue is we throw out words and what it is that we do, titles, and we're not really, what one person hears isn't not necessarily what the other person is saying. So even though what I think of as a realtor has changed since early on, in my career to now, being an entrepreneur. So now when I say I'm a realtor, it's totally different than what I'm trying to communicate to other people, because they're not at the stage in their life or in their career to where being a realtor is to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I think, but and that's the challenge of communication, right? We talked about that on our last show. And so when someone asks what you do and you respond with, I'm a realtor, what does that mean to you?
Right. Well, because the thing is, it changes. Now, when I early was a realtor, I was more of a salesperson. Now I'm an entrepreneur. So, for example, my constituents, or the people, my target audience was for buyers. Well, then as I grew, my conversation got around helping sellers. Now I'm having conversations with other real estate agents on how to me, being a realtor is being a coach. I coach buyers, I coach sellers. And now as an entrepreneur, I'm coaching other real estate agents to help buyers and sellers. Okay.
So you said now you're an entrepreneur and now you're a coach, because you're coaching your buyers, you're coaching your sellers, you're coaching real estate agents. I almost hear that as like you're a facilitator, right? You're like helping people get from where they are now to where they want to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what's fascinating is I've never seen that anywhere in the code of ethics or in the description of a real estate agent, is that their realtor is coach and facilitator, right? And so one of the challenges we have in explaining or in communicating what we do in our industry is there are so many perceptions of what a realtor is or what a realtor does. In fact, I oftentimes never respond with that I'm a realtor, because I don't even like the connotation that comes with saying that I'm a realtor.
Right.
Whatever the consumer hears is likely not at all what my life or business looks like.
Right.
And so I try not to actually ever respond that way. And that's the challenge that we have in our industry is explaining your role as team leader is how do people understand the impact that team leader has? Because being team leader is one of the most nondescript job titles. When you look at the actual job description and job duty, it is incredibly nondescript when you say that, the same way that being a realtor is. So how do you overcome that with people?
So you have to bridge gaps. So a lot of it is discovery. By bridging, when I bridge gaps, what I do is I'm a home coach. So people understand I help people buy and sell real estate. When I'm having conversations with a real estate agent from a recruiting perspective, I'm a real estate agent coach. My job is to help you have your career go from point A to point B. Where do you want it to go? Okay, chances are I've been there. Let's put action steps in order to get you where you want to be. If you're a buyer or a seller, what is it that you want? Okay, let's put action steps to get you where you need to be. There's no difference. So I'm able to run multiple businesses because I approach it the exact same way. The only thing changes is my target and my message.
Okay. And if you were to guess, what do you think people think of? And maybe this is a better question for Kate and Tyler, because they have the third party, like outside perspective, and they can generalize without hate that Michael and I will get if we do so. If you ask someone what they do and they respond and say they're a realtor, what comes to mind for you?
Probably you drive around town a lot and you show houses.
Okay. So somebody who is showing houses and likely operating from their car. And you know what? There was a day in my business when I was a realtor or I guess I still am, but when I was actively practicing as a real estate agent, where that was actually my reality. Mm-hmm. I mean, so much so I was like, the world's like, you did not want me on the road as a realtor, because I was probably doing things that are not supposed to be done on the road, which might have involved my phone and driving, right? So, so that's probably an accurate description.
To drive you.
What's that?
You ended up hiring somebody.
That's right. You. Yeah, that's right. Because the biggest impediment to my growth was the fact that I spent most of my day driving. So I actually hired someone and had them drive for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Which seemed like it was real bougie, but like that was the biggest encumbrance of my time was actually driving. So it seemed like I needed a driver.
Yeah. And you just have to run into a couple of people to learn that lesson,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Get pulled over.
Which I totally was doing all the time. Definitely was just running people over for sure. So you think of someone driving. Kate, do you have a different perspective than that?
Well, mainly it's someone I have to answer the phone with. Is what I actually think about is like scheduling listings, and like someone who's so stressed out and like can barely have time to give me all the details that I need. That's my like true experience with them. But that's from working with them.
Both of those are pretty accurate depictions for some people as well.
The problem is we are all of those things at some point in time. This is the problem, is I think that going into being a realtor, we don't even, like, realtors don't know what realtors are. So like, this has been a journey for me, like red pill, blue pill. Like I've just ended up here.
Yeah.
I mean, so like the problem is, if the further you go down that path, that path to becoming an entrepreneur depends on where you are on that continuum. And that's where the problem is, everybody thinks this is HGTV. They think, but that's literally half of the job. The other half is getting in front of people on a regular basis. So like, it's fair for people to think that that's what the job is, but there's so much more to it. And it's hard to communicate that to buyers, because then that's your value proposition. Or your sellers. You're saying, okay, you guys see me driving around in this nice car and you see us showing homes, but there's so much more to the business. And it's really hard to communicate that.
Absolutely. It is become probably even harder for you, I would imagine. I know for me, it has become incrementally harder for me to explain what I do if it's with consumers. And that's because, recently vowed to take basically no more new appointments. Personally, I realized that it was better. I think we may have mentioned this, that I just think it's like the best thing for everyone,
involved,
is to like have me operate as like an advisory role, right? Is like be a senior advisor on their move, not point guard.
Yeah.
And so I'm better being up in the press box watching it than I am to be coordinating it. And so no one thinks about that role when I say I am
until you get to a position to where that is your, like when I'm down here and I'm looking, I'm like, well, like, right. But once you get up there, you understand it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
100, it makes sense to me because that's my reality. I've not figured out if it makes sense to the consumer yet. So when I go on an appointment, or when someone goes, "Hey, I've been calling you and I can't," and you didn't answer, you didn't respond, how do I explain to them, "Hey, I didn't respond because I've been on 9 hours of Zoom meetings back to back, doing real estate things that unfortunately may not have been what you envisioned when you thought about realtor." The other day I was on a meeting with the board of realtors to discuss builder relations and realtor relations and appraisal relations and the partnership. How do we improve the industry? Those are the things that I do now as a realtor that I did not do at one point in time, that do actually still benefit consumers.
Absolutely.
That do still keep me plugged into what it's like to be a real estate agent on a daily basis. But it's a dynamic that has changed. And so, I had to really sit down and start to craft out a more concise and clear message about the impact that I have when I explain what I do, rather than give a title or an official professional designation. And so what I came up with is that we specialize in real estate training and operations for achievement-focused real estate agents.
Right.
Because it's the impact that our business has, is that we focus on real estate training and operations support for achievement-focused real estate agents. Because at the end of the day, my primary focus is agents who want to be achievers, who want to build highly effective, highly leveraged roles in real estate. And we do that through training and through support.
Right.
If you're not someone who's focused on achievement, I'm probably not wildly effective for you.
Right.
We probably don't speak the same language, unfortunately, and that's
I'm
okay.
gonna burn you out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna burn you out.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're someone who is not interested in improving operations, systems, models, efficiencies, we probably don't speak the same language.
Right.
And if you're someone who doesn't value like with a premium training,
right,
we probably don't. Probably not a great fit.
Right.
And so I had to think about what do I do, but not what do I do? What do I impact, and who is my target audience in the most clear and concise way? And so we specialize in real estate training in operations for the achievement-focused real estate agent.
So I use a lot of, anybody who watches the show or listens to the show, I use a lot of analogies. So this is how I explain to my clients my role as a real estate agent. I tell them I'm an executive. When you go to your doctor's office, your doctor doesn't clean the toilets, schedule your appointment, confirm your appointment. Your doctor doesn't do all those things. Your doctor's an executive. Your doctor has a staff that does that. So what's happened is I've had a level of success selling real estate, and what it's done is it's actually made me a bad real estate agent.
Yeah.
My wife hates me, and my clients hate me, because when you are juggling such a lot of people, you do a bad job for everyone. So what I do is I have a team, and we run just like an executive team. So my job is to delight you, to provide excellent customer service, and I want you to tell everybody about what it is that we do. So that's the reason why I've partnered with this agent, and their job is to make sure that your needs are fulfilled. I work in tandem with this person. We have a transaction coordinator, and their job is to delight you once you're under contract and make sure all your questions are answered and you are happy. So by me being able to team up with talented people, I'm able to serve you in a much better way. So that's the way I communicate that to them. And then it allows me to say, okay, when you have this problem, you need to go to this person, and this is the reason why.
Yeah, and one of the things I heard you say is that, and one of the things that I've really observed in some recent challenges business wise, is that we have to craft our message from the perspective of the listener.
Yeah,
it is when we think about telling the story or a story, it needs to be from the perspective of you and you, the listener. Right? And so the person who's listening to this podcast needs to know that I'm talking to them. And oftentimes we tell stories, and a great way to audit it is how many times do we use first person pronouns when we tell stories?
Yeah.
When in fact the best way to connect is how do we tell stories from the perspective of you?
Yeah.
And when we do, then it shifts how we craft that narrative.
How you hear it, how they hear it. Mm-hmm. You're not bragging.
That's right.
This is how I apply it to me.
Correct.
Everybody goes into a doctor's office, and it'd be really weird if my doctor was cleaning the toilet.
Yeah. And if your doctor was also, and if your doctor was telling you about his ailments.
Yeah, right.
And how his treatments helped him.
Yeah, right.
Now, he might help validate himself and the treatment if he shared an anecdotal story about how it helped his wife or someone who is important to him.
Yeah,
because that would at least validate, hey, when there was this terminal condition, the doctor trusted this so much, he had it done with his own family.
Right.
So sometimes it works effectively to share anecdotes that are personal and firsthand as well. But most of the time we need that perspective to be from the standpoint of the listener. And so, we've really looked at it and said, okay, how do I craft then questions or messages that are even more you focused for the agent? Like, how is the on-demand nature of real estate impacting your family and work? Has there ever been a real estate agent who didn't have an on-demand nature of real estate agent? That's what Kate said, right? Is that all I think about when I think about real estate agents? I think about the fact that they're on demand so much, they have no ability to process the details and information needed to schedule a call. And that
photos.
Or photos. Yeah, that's right.
Photos.
Yeah. And that's different than if we are in a conversation with a real estate agent, or if we're recruiting and we, and say, hey, when I was like you, I also didn't have time because I was on demand.
Right.
It's more effective to present the problem from the you listener perspective of, hey, how is the on-demand nature of real estate impacting you and your family?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it makes it about them. It's their pain. So like, okay, you're doing this. How is that impacting you? And then that could be your why. So that'll help you like move from point A to point B.
Yeah. And so what we know is that universally people are relatively all the same. And that's I realize it's a broad generalization, but despite what the media and the news will tell you is that actually people are the same.
Yeah, we're the same.
Michael and I, we look different slightly. You're way more handsome than I am, but otherwise we're the same, right? In that we have the core basic human needs and desires. And when we think about from the same perspective, we can apply that professionally, we're the same.
Right.
In that, we know that universally real estate agents have the same challenges. Business owners have the same challenges. They manifest themselves differently,
right,
but they are universally the same problems. And so when we structure our message to hit the universal problems, we're able to connect with you, the listener, more effectively.
Right.
And so what I know is that real estate agents have roughly the same problem regardless of where they are in their growth trajectory.
Totally.
More time, more money, or I guess I should say, not enough time, not enough money,
or both.
Not the belief to be, correct. Not the belief of not enough leads. Now that's really just a manifestation of not enough money, but not enough leads.
Conversion.
Not enough people, which is really just or the right people, which is a manifestation of time and money typically.
To be honestly, everything, do you remember in math how you do a divide and you keep going? Everything divides back to time and money. Yeah.
The only other thing that I think that we could throw in, and it doesn't apply for everyone, which is not enough impact and legacy. There is a point in time in your career when you get to.
I'm not there yet.
I'm
not there yet. I'm still time and money. Right? I'm not legacy yet.
Like I've gotten to the like legacy place where, and I say that because what I wanted to accomplish, I accomplished.
Right.
And I shared the stories. I was #1 individual agent in the region by luck. And then I was the #1. I mean, I had to have a lot of things aligned in my life, though, also at that exact time to facilitate that. I didn't have a wife and kids.
Yeah.
I didn't have any obligations other than an obsessive amount of drive and focus and enough leads and the skill set before I joined to make the right decisions that played out effectively to do that. And then we started a team, and we were the #1 team the first year that we started. So we got lucky there, and that we had the right people and the right system and the right environment, and we just multiplied that.
How many times did you read that book, though?
I think maybe 3 times prior to that was my guess.
So what you're telling me, like luck, but I'm telling you, I did this.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's some luck in there.
Yeah.
But I got my teeth kicked in.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think sometimes though that's important too, is that, there's a ton of fascinating psychology and fallacies around the hindsight bias, right? And around like where we put, too much credit on events, believing that their correlation was causal to an outcome. And so when I look at it, I'm just trying to say, hey, there is correlation, and then there's causation of outcomes. And I like when we started a team, I was fortunate to have really great people, and that made what I was doing as an individual exponentially more effective. I had brand new agents selling 40 plus houses in their first year because they were great people.
Yeah.
And they were talented.
They were rock stars.
And then with Chris running operations, I mean, Chris is wildly talented, and he and I had great synergy.
Right.
And sometimes Steve Jobs and Wozniak get together to make Apple. Right. And sometimes, you've got Ballmer and Bill Gates. I mean, there are a lot of like happenstance of synergy that occurs to multiply the outcome and multiply the effectiveness. But what I realized though is that it becomes, once you achieve it and when you don't actually expect it to happen, and then you go out, and year 2 was way scarier than year 1, because when you have to go defend a title.
Yeah.
And when you get your first hit, your Billboard Top 100, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But then when you need another Billboard Top 100 to not be the Macarena, that's much heavier. And so once doing it 3 times, when we grew 3 years in a row, as to 2+ million in GCI, the weight of that has gone. To now it's impact, now it's legacy, right? So I think that it's money, time, legacy, if you could strip it down, but otherwise there's not much more from a problem perspective that's universal.
I think what's also in those beginning years too is like the naiveness that you have towards everything.
You have to be naively arrogant.
Yeah. And so,
or you wouldn't do it.
Correct.
You would be like, yo, this is crazy.
Because you hear about like how you sold 76 houses your first year.
Yeah. Nobody told me that it couldn't be done or that it was unusual. I didn't know that wasn't supposed to happen. Or that
you just did it.
Correct.
I know.
I've often thought that about myself. Keller Williams has given me so much as as a business person, as an individual for my life, like, I think that my business is probably 5 to 10x, and earnings of probably 10 to 15x since being a part of the company. But I don't know if I was a brand new agent, if I would have had the exact same outcome, because somebody might have found me at the office refrigerator and told me that no one sells 130 houses their second year.
Yeah.
And that may have had some impact on the result I got.
Right.
I'm like, maybe I would have taken my foot off the gas.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have
freaked out,
justified, mutual releases or deals that didn't work out or customers that didn't come to fruition. Instead, I just was naively arrogant enough to not know any different.
Yeah.
There is a value in being young enough and dumb enough to not know better and just go do it.
Yeah. Cause I mean, that's the thing that when I'm talking to agents every day, and I'm like, bless their heart. They tell me these stories about what,
I hope you do.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I don't ever want to be that diminishing type person that ever, but like, that's absolutely right. You have to balance reality with, market forces. And, a lot of times there's people that they can totally do that.
Yeah.
They just have to like seek models.
Mm-hmm.
They want big results, but they don't have a game plan, a strategy, the strategic get to that goal. They just hope that it happens.
And I wonder too, Mike, is do people need someone to also simultaneously believe in them? Like there's a lot of power in knowing that someone believes that you can also do it.
I totally believe that.
Yeah.
I know there's been times on my lowest when I want to quit. I remember my aunt telling me when I was a kid, Mikey, you're going to be the first millionaire in the family.
That's awesome, dude.
And so
that's so cool.
There's been times where I've wanted to quit and I've heard my aunt say that in my head.
Yeah.
Does that make
that's
sense?
Cool. Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. Tyler, when we went to Vegas in 2018, this is what made me really start to think that was, I was preaching at a Zillow event, and this lady came up to me afterwards and said, she asked me a question that I'd never thought of. She's like, did your mom tell you could do anything and everything you ever wanted to do when you were a kid? Was she convinced that you could do anything? And I'm like, yeah, she was. Yeah, absolutely. My mom's that way. And she's like, yeah, me too. I think that's why you can do it. And I was like, damn, that's profound. Like, how much confidence did that give me, knowing that somebody actually, whether true or not, I think that my mother thinks that, whether true or not, that hey, it wasn't just me who thought that was possible.
Right.
That is interesting. What about somebody or something to prove wrong? How does that come into your business when you have a nice little chip on your shoulder? Is that?
Yeah, I use that too. Like, it's like a tug, yin and yang, tug. So like I'll shut the haters up. Mm-hmm. You're not going to amount to anything. And then the number one way.
Has anybody ever told you that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like in a lot of people, I've had people attribute I sell so many houses because I'm black, or whatever,
which is fascinating, right? You're like, wow, that's cool. When that became a perk, I had no idea. Wow, my whole life I had no clue this was a benefit.
This is new to me. Like, this is okay.
This is what it feels like, huh? Got it.
Yes, to be in the majority. Finally, I made it.
That's right.
So, but like, there's definitely has to be a chip on your shoulder, and then also you have to be like, there's certain people when they tell you. Like I have had people say to me, Mike, you're going to make it or whatever. And I listen to them. And there's some people, so you have to be selective, and there's people I'm proving wrong. I still have a girlfriend from high school that I wanted to prove that she made a bad decision by breaking up with me and cheating on me. And I'm still kind of proving her wrong.
That's hilarious. Man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Tyler, I guess to answer your question, if you absolutely, I think that matters. I think it can be toxic at a certain point too, but there's no doubt that proving haters wrong absolutely can be fuel. The challenge can be is when there's a lot of haters or a lot of really loud haters.
Yeah, powerful haters
is not cracking, right? And so I think about like Jordan, for instance. Right. Jordan was somebody who got a ton of fuel from haters.
Yeah.
And went out of his way to manufacture hate when there wasn't hate.
Yeah.
Just as power pellets.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody like a David Goggins, right? I mean, I think about the story of, we broke our team into like squads because there's so many of us now that we found our morning meetings every morning, they were taking too long. And so we're like, all right, we're going to tether the organization and create some small groups, like what a church would be and split things up. But what it makes me think of David Goggins' rant about Boat Crew 2. And when he was a Navy SEAL, he imagined that the SEAL sergeants were going to go home and be comfortable in their beds with their spouses, and it was going to be air conditioned, and they were going to sleep, and the SEALs during Hell Week were going to be outside, still awake for 120 plus hours, freezing in the water, and they were gonna like find comfort in the fact that the sergeants were gonna be comfortable in bed. And so instead, he decided that they were going to go and wreck the mindset of the sergeants so that they had to be more uncomfortable than the SEALs were by not cracking and not breaking and not showing any intimidation or any like fatigue that week by lifting the boats instead, like in military pressing the boats during Hell Week instead of carrying them. They were going to like intimidate the SEALs to know that they were not, when you go home and you're comfortable in bed, we're going to still be out here awake carrying the boats like Boat Crew 2. And I want you to question why you're the weakest one in the SEAL team when you go home to your comfy bed when I'm out here pressing boats and carrying logs without cracking. And so I think there's absolutely that energy to it. Yeah. As long as you channel it effectively, then it works. The challenge with it though can become is when you need that fuel source, you go there to the dark side way more than you go to the light side.
That's what it's called. It's the dark side.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the dark side. But you're absolutely right. So like my energy, so to me, that's it's like willpower and habits. Like if you want a successful career, build systems and models around habits. When you go to the dark side is where the systems and models you need a little more juice. Then that's kind of where you kind of go. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's like kind of like willpower.
Yeah, it's that extra nitrous of energy, right? When you need a burst, for sure. And so when I think about kind of tying a bow on all of this and really bringing everything back to like, okay, how does the listener take action? Like, how do you at home think about reworking communication in a way that is most effective for the person you're communicating with? I think somebody has to first start with their audience. Like, who is your audience?
Yeah.
How do they feel? How do they think? What do they need to feel? What do they need to see? What do they need to think in order to take action or take the necessary actions in order to create the change that you facilitate in your current role? And so when we think about creating that message to either recruit real estate agents, it's thinking from the perspective of those universal problems. How do I craft my message around more time, more money, more legacy? For some people, it's leads. For some people, they believe it is something else. So maybe I need to speak that language, what their perception is.
You need to get down to that.
That's right.
And then build back up to that. How I'm going to fix your problem is actually these three universal truths, because all these are tales of one of these three truths.
That's perfect, because more leads is actually a manifestation of more money, right?
Right.
But you believe most agents believe that at times they have a leads problem or that they have a listings problem.
Right.
The only reason they need any of those things is because they have a money problem or a money goal. And so we can get there, but we've got to go through the path of least resistance, which is leads, listings, leverage, right? At the end of the day, though, they are universally the same problem. And so now let's flip it and think about, okay, as a real estate agent, what should you be crafting your message around for the consumer? Well, we think about what are the things that what are the reasons why the consumer takes action to move? Because moving is a big freaking headache. Yeah. At least it is the last time I moved. And so
that's your message.
Yeah.
Effortless, streamline.
That's what they want. Absolutely.
Moving,
right.
If that's their hot button.
That's right. So I have to think about, what is it that they're moving for? What is the actual root cause, first principle of why someone would put themselves in an inconvenient position of high stress, high emotion, very disruptive for a family or for an individual? Why would someone do that? Well, they're almost always moving towards pleasure or away from pain. And that pain doesn't need to be real. It needs to be imaginary future pain. Oftentimes the husband whose wife is pregnant with their third child has an imagined future pain if they live in a 3-bedroom home, right? Or if they live in a 2-bedroom home.
Yeah.
And so I need to craft my message for what that person's universal pain is. And it's almost always something that is future friction based. And that's going to be more peace of mind, more time, more money, less pain.
Yeah.
And creating a best case scenario future impact. And so oftentimes I need to uncover that through needs analysis, but I can also tailor the message based on who my ideal audience is.
Right.
In fact, I believe we did a very early episode about this, which was like marketing and messaging around how do you take someone on a journey as their guide. It is that same principle of communication, is really communicating from the perspective of how you impact what someone does, not what you do.
I watch commercials, and commercials help me with my business from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
Because if you look at commercials, they literally strip down, what do you want to know about that business? Mm-hmm. And so you have to approach your business that way. So right now, sellers are a really big thing, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to focus your business around sellers. So if you're looking at it if you're a real estate agent, is your message, is your branding, is everything you're communicating and your advertising around buyers or sellers right now? Okay. So then you need to identify, who are you trying to talk to?
That's right.
If you're trying to talk to if you're trying to talk to sellers, why is all your advertising talking about first time home buyers?
Yeah. Who is your audience?
Who is your audience? And then talk to that audience over and over. That's all commercials are, is programming. They're programming you to think of them. So all you have to do in your business, you craft a message. What is it that sellers need? I want to sell my home for the most amount of money and the least effort. Well, there's your message. Say that over and over and over. And then people start remembering you for that.